Okay, so today we're going to look at the principle of utility, which is the central kind of fundamental working point of utilitarianism. Now, the key idea with the principle of utility is that every action, so every kind of thing you perform, should aim to produce the most amount of happiness possible. So, as you can see, it's about consequences, but it's about judging those actions by the consequences specifically oriented around happiness. So, just to give you a slightly better understanding of what we mean by the principle of utility, it is to maximize net utility. Now, maximizing net utility is essentially this. The action that you perform is the one the action you perform has consequences. You want to choose the action that has the most amount of utility. So let's say you have two different options in front of you. One has, say, 50 happiness. I'll put H for happiness. But then you've got pain as well. And let's say there is 10 pain. So the result then would be 40 utility. The other option would maybe produce 100 happiness, so loads and loads of happiness. But of course the pain is maybe extreme. Maybe the result is also 80 pain. So the result would be 20 utility. So this one would be the correct one to perform. Maximizing utility is about choosing the action that produces the most amount of happiness. This means that utilitarianism generally is teleological in nature. In other words, it is concerned with consequences. Now, you may also refer to this as consequentialism. They mean the same thing. Okay, so I think one of the really interesting points about the principle of utility, and it's a point that's often missed, is this. As John Stuart Mill writes, everybody is to count for one, and none for more than one, is the full quote. So everybody counts for one alone. What does he mean by this? Well, he actually means by this something really interesting. I think perhaps the best way of putting it is that people don't count. Now that sounds extremely radical, right? I thought this was all about happiness. It is, but it's not about people. It's instead only about happiness. So only happiness matters. If we look back at this example again, notice I didn't include people in it. I just included happiness and pain, happiness and pain. So it could be that in this example, the one we chose, there's one person that's going to experience 50 happiness and 10 people who are going to experience 1 pain each. Doesn't matter. It's the net result that matters only. I want you to consider utilitarianism like this: a great big happiness experiencing machine. So here in the happiness experiencing machine, acts go in there. They feed through the happiness experiencing machine, and outcomes are down here are the things that actually matter. We judge it based upon the percentage of happiness that is achieved, the amount of happiness that is achieved. You, as a person, are merely a cog in the machine of happiness producing. So happiness is it, and that is just happiness minus pain. And now we can turn to kind of the workings of it a little bit more. So the happiness minus pain thing is essentially this. We work out how much pleasure would be produced in any particular set of outcomes, any particular set of consequences, and then we take away the pain. This is sometimes called the hedonic calculus, and this is Jeremy Bentham's idea. So the hedonic calculus is that we literally do a sum to produce the answer. The idea is that pain and pleasure are given numbers. Now you may be thinking that sounds arbitrary. We're going to find out in another tutorial kind of Bentham's way of assigning this. But pain and pleasure are given numbers, and then a calculation is made. And whatever the calculation is the one that you ought to perform. So, the right action then is that which produces most happiness after pain has been taken away. And remember, people don't matter, and it is only the outcome of happiness that matters. Now this has a really interesting kind of effect here, which is that utilitarianism has a relative understanding of good. What that means is that goodness, or good action anyway, changes according to circumstances. So it may be that, generally speaking, stealing is bad. It lowers utility. It undermines business and so on. But occasionally, say you're Jean Valjean from Les Miserables or something like that, you've got to steal in order to feed your nephew. So in that circumstance, stealing is a good thing. It's relative because the same action could be good or bad depending upon different circumstances. Interestingly, Mill rejects kind of traditional understanding of morality and justice because it doesn't produce as much happiness as utilitarianism does. When we focus on the only rationally establishable thing, according to Mill, the principle of utility.